The first thing the galaxy learned about humanity was that humans were weak. The second thing it learned was that humans were dangerous. The third thing came far too late. Humanity had joined the Galactic Union only 12 years earlier. Their admission had been almost an accident. The Union had expected another minor civilization, a species from a comfortable world, technologically competent enough for interstellar travel, economically useful, but strategically irrelevant. Earth had gravity of 9.8 meters per second squared. Their homeworld was considered unusually hostile. Their atmosphere contained oxygen in concentrations that would be poisonous to many Union species. Their oceans were enormous. Their weather was violent. Their animals were aggressive, and humans themselves, they were soft-skinned, fragile mammals with no claws, no natural armor, no venom, no wings, no enhanced senses, and no biological weapons. The Karun ambassador had summarized humanity perfectly during the admission ceremony. Primitive, nobody disagreed, except the human ambassador. She had smiled. That should have been the first warning. 20 years later, Admiral Varesh of the Karun Empire stood before the Galactic Council. Behind him floated a holographic map of the Orion Arm. Human territory was marked in blue. Karun territory was marked in red. The red was spreading. "We give them one final opportunity," Varesh said. The council chamber remained silent. "Humanity will surrender its military fleet, abandon its outer colonies, and accept Karun protection." The human ambassador, Daniel Hayes, leaned back in his chair. "Protection from what?" Varesh smiled. "From us." A few representatives laughed. Daniel didn't. "That's not protection." "No? It's occupation." Varesh's smile disappeared. "Call it whatever makes you comfortable." Daniel looked around the chamber. "You're making a mistake." That produced another round of laughter. One of the counselors clicked his mandibles. "Human ambassador, your species possesses fewer than 800 major warships. 793. Your fleet is inferior to ours by every measurable standard. Probably. You have no shield technology. Correct. No energy weapons. Not yet. No matter transmutation. Correct. No artificial wormhole network. Correct. And yet you continue to behave as though you can resist the Karun Empire." Daniel slowly stood. "That's because you're measuring the wrong things." Varesh laughed. "What should we measure?" Daniel looked directly at him. "How badly we want to go home." The Karun invasion began 3 days later. Humanity lost 12 colonies in the first week, 31 in the second. By the third week, the Karun fleet had entered the Sol system. The galaxy celebrated. News networks across the Union showed footage of Karun battleships approaching Earth. Commentators predicted surrender within hours. Humanity had been given a chance. Humanity had refused. Now humanity would learn its place. Then something strange happened. The human fleet disappeared. Every human warship vanished from the battlefield. The Karun scanners found nothing. No engines. No weapons. No communication signals. Nothing. "Where did they go?" Varesh demanded. His tactical officer stared at the displays. "We don't know. Search the system." "We have. Search again." "We have searched 11 times." Varesh slammed his fist against the command console. "Then find them." The Karun fleet reached Earth. Nothing attacked them. No missiles, no fighters, no orbital platforms, no defense stations. The planet simply turned beneath them. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents, beautiful, peaceful. The Karun invasion fleet positioned itself over North America. Varesh opened a communication channel. "Humanity," he announced. "Your defenses have failed. Surrender." Static answered. Varesh frowned. "Humanity, respond." Nothing. He ordered the transmission repeated. Still nothing. Then the planetary lights went out. Every city, every station, every airport, every military base. The entire planet became dark. The Karun fleet watched in confusion. Then Earth's moon went dark too. Varesh stared at it. "What's happening?" his tactical officer whispered. "Admiral." A red warning appeared across the command display. "Unknown energy signature." Then another, then hundreds, thousands. They were appearing everywhere, around Earth. behind the Karun fleet, above them, below them, inside their formation. Varesh's blood ran cold. Those aren't ships, his officer swallowed. No? What are they? The answer came from somewhere behind the fleet, a human voice, calm, almost gentle. You're looking at the reason we never showed you our navy. Every Karun display suddenly activated. A human face appeared. Daniel Hayes, the ambassador. But he wasn't sitting inside the Galactic Council anymore. He was wearing a black military uniform. Behind him stood hundreds of officers. Daniel looked directly into the camera. Admiral Varesh. Varesh stared. Who are you? Daniel smiled. You've been asking the wrong question for 20 years. The holographic map changed. The Earth disappeared. Instead, the entire solar system appeared. Then the galaxy. Then something else. Lines began appearing, millions of them. Hidden routes, hidden stations, hidden fleets. The Karun tactical officer whispered, Impossible. Daniel continued, You thought humanity had 793 warships. He paused. We do. Varesh relaxed slightly. Then Daniel added, That's all the Union knows about. The tactical display zoomed outward. The blue Earth suddenly became surrounded by enormous structures. Ship thousands, then tens of thousands. Some were the size of cities. Others were so large they had their own artificial gravity fields. And behind them were more, far beyond the Sol. System, hidden in asteroid belts, inside gas giants buried beneath. Moons orbiting distant stars. Humanity's real fleet had been waiting. For decades, Varesh stared in horror. You built all this? Daniel shook his head. No, Varesh blinked. Then who did? Daniel's expression hardened. We did. The Karun fleet fired first. 1,000 plasma cannons opened. Simultaneously, Earth's atmosphere flashed. Then, the human fleet moved, not forward, sideways. Every human ship jumped at once. The Karun. Weapons passed through empty space. Where did they go? The answer came from behind them. Here, human. Missiles appeared inside the Karun. Formation not outside, inside. They had bypassed shields entirely. Thousands of explosions ripped through the fleet. Karun battleships began dying, but humanity didn't celebrate. They didn't even speak. They simply executed the plan. One formation cut off the Karun. Retreat. Another disabled communications. A third attacked their engines. A fourth surrounded their command ships. And above Earth, the largest human vessel appeared. It was not shaped like a traditional warship. It looked like a continent. Its hull was dark, no visible weapons, no engines, just a single symbol painted across its Earth. The ship transmitted one message. Stop! Varesh's hands trembled. The Karun fleet stopped firing. Daniel's voice returned. You attacked our colonies. Silence. You killed civilians. Silence. You believed we were weak because we didn't show you everything we had. Daniel leaned closer to the camera. But here's the part you still don't understand. Varesh stared at him. Daniel pointed toward Earth. We don't want your empire, the Karun. Commander looked confused. Then what do you want? To go home. You already have your home, Daniel smiled. Sadly, no. He looked through the viewport at the blue planet. Below. We have a responsibility. The Karun invasion ended that day, not because humanity destroyed the Karun fleet. It could have. Instead, humanity disabled it. Every surviving Karun ship was given enough fuel to return. Every captured soldier was released. Every colony taken during the invasion was turned. The galaxy was stunned. But the real shock came 6 months later. The Galactic Council summoned humanity. Daniel Hayes entered the chamber. The same chamber where he had once been laughed at. The same chamber where humanity had been called primitive. He stood before the council. The Karun ambassador sat across from him. Varesh no longer wore his military medals. Daniel looked at the assembled representatives. You were all wondering why we hid our real military strength. Nobody spoke. We didn't hide it because we wanted an advantage. Daniel paused. We hid it because we hoped we would never need it. Counselor finally spoke. Then why build such a fleet? Daniel looked toward the stars. Because Earth taught us something. What? Peace isn't the absence of weapons. He looked back at them. Sometimes peace exists because someone is strong enough to protect it. The chamber remained silent. Then Varesh stood. Everyone turned toward him. The former admiral looked at Daniel. We called your world primitive. Daniel nodded. You did. We called your species weak. Yes, Varesh lowered his head. We were wrong. Daniel extended his hand. Varesh hesitated, then took it, and across the galaxy, millions of beings watched the moment. Humanity had entered the galaxy as a minor civilization. It had been mocked, underestimated, ignored, then threatened, and when the galaxy finally discovered what humanity had become, it learned something terrifying. Humans weren't the strongest species. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the smartest. They weren't even the most technologically advanced. They were simply the species that had learned to survive on a world that never stopped trying to kill them, and Earth had taught its children one rule above all others. If you want peace badly enough, be strong enough to defend it. Years later, the Galactic Union changed its history books. The chapter once titled Humanity, a primitive deathworld civilization, was replaced with 3 words: never underestimate humans. For 6 years, the galaxy enjoyed peace. Humanity became something strange within the Galactic Union, not an empire, not a superpower. Something harder to understand. A guardian. Human ships appeared wherever. Civilizations were threatened. Pirates disappeared. Slave fleets were dismantled. Worlds suffering natural disasters received human relief vessels, and whenever 2 species came close to war, a human diplomatic ship usually arrived. First, the humans didn't conquer. They didn't demand tribute. They didn't even ask for territory. They simply helped. This confused the galaxy more than their hidden fleet ever had. Then one morning, every human ship in the galaxy received the same message. Contained only 3 words: we are awake. No one knew what it meant, not even the humans. The message had originated from deep space, beyond the edge of mapped territory, far beyond the Karun Empire, beyond the Galactic Union. It had come from a region of space officially classified as empty. The Human Research Vessel Odyssey was the first ship sent to investigate. Captain Elena Ward stood on the bridge as the stars stretched into lines around her. Distance: 3 light years. Signal still transmitting. Elena frowned. Any language? No. Pattern? The communications officer hesitated. That's the strange part. What? It isn't a language. Then what is it? The officer turned toward her. It's a heartbeat. The bridge became silent. Elena walked toward the display. The signal appeared as a repeating waveform. Pulse. Pause. Pulse. Pause. 3 short pulses, 1 long, then silence, then again. Elena stared at it. She had seen that pattern before, not in space. On Earth, her face went pale. Run historical databases. The officer looked confused. Why? Just do it. Seconds later, the results appeared. The pattern had been recorded on Earth thousands of years ago, before humanity had invented radio, before electricity, before written history. Signal had appeared in several ancient civilizations: Mayan records, Sumerian tablets, Australian Aboriginal oral traditions, ancient African cave markings, even fragments discovered beneath Antarctic ice. All described the same thing: a light in the sky, a voice without words, and 3 warnings. Do not answer, Elena whispered. Oh, God. The communications officer looked at her. What? Elena turned. We already answered. The signal stopped for exactly 11 seconds. Then, every star on the bridge display disappeared. Not because they had gone dark, because something had appeared between the Odyssey and the stars. Something enormous. The ship's sensors screamed. Object detected. Size? No idea. Give me an estimate. The sensor officer stared at the numbers. Captain, what? It's bigger than the planet. Silence. Elena looked through the viewport. At first she saw nothing, then the darkness. A structure emerged. It was impossible to describe. Part machine, part organism. Its surface was covered in enormous geometric patterns thousands of kilometers across, and at its center was a single opening, a circle of absolute darkness. The communications officer whispered, "Is that a ship?" Elena shook her head. "No. What is it?" She remembered the ancient records, a light in the sky, a voice without words, 3 warnings. Her stomach tightened. That's a door. Across the galaxy, human military command centers went on maximum alert. The hidden fleet that had once terrified the Karun was mobilized. But this time, humanity didn't send 7,000 ships. It sent everything. The Karun watched in disbelief as human fleets emerged from hyperspace. 1, 10, 100, then thousands. The entire Sol defense. Network activated. Varesh, now serving as a diplomatic advisor, watched the fleet gather. What are they afraid of? Daniel Hayes stood beside him. I don't. No, Varesh stared at him. You always. No. Daniel shook his head. That's the problem. A transmission. Appear. Captain Elena Ward, Daniel answered. Immediately. Captain. Ambassador. Her expression was grim. We found something. Daniel waited. It's not an alien. Civilization. Then what is it? Elena looked directly into the camera. It's infrastructure. Daniel's expression changed. For what? She swallowed. We don't know. A second. Transmission arrived. Then, a third, then thousands. Every astronomical observatory in the galaxy had detected the same phenomenon. Objects were appearing, not one, not 10 millions. They were emerging at the edge of known space. Ancient structures, world-sized. Machines. Artificial moons. Dead megastructures. All moving toward the center of the galaxy, toward Earth. The Galactic Council immediately convened. Panic spread through every major civilization. What are they? Who built them? Why are they coming? Why Earth? No one had an answer, until an ancient archive was opened. It belonged to the oldest civilization in the Union, the Thalorians. Their civilization was over 80,000 years old. Their archives contained records from before most modern species had evolved. The Thalorian High Archivist entered the council chamber. He carried a small crystal. His hands were shaking. I found something. The chamber became. Then the crystal activated a recording. Peered. An ancient alien stood before the camera. His species was unknown. His eyes were enormous. His voice was distorted by age. But his message was clear. If you are seeing this. He looked behind himself. Something was burning in the sky. Then the gate has opened. The recording shook. The alien continued. We thought they were gods. A massive explosion appeared behind him. We were wrong. The recording ended. The council stared at the darkness. Varesh whispered, Who are they? The Thalorian archivist answered, We don't know. Daniel stood. But the recording says they destroyed an entire civilization. No, the archivist shook his head. It says something worse. Daniel looked at him. What? The old alien activated the final fragment. A single sentence appeared. They did not destroy us. Daniel's blood ran cold. The archivist continued. They used us. For what? The old alien's final words played. To build the road. 3 days later, the first structure reached the edge of human space. Humanity fired everything it had. Thousands of warships. Launched nuclear weapons, antimatter. Weapons. Kinetic projectiles, gravitational. Weapons. Every weapon humanity had ever developed. The structure continued moving unharmed. Reached the outer solar system. Then it stopped. A transmission appeared. Every communication device in the galaxy activated simultaneously. The voice was not male, not female, not even biological. It was simply sound perfectly, translated into every known language. Found. The galaxy went silent. The voice continued. Home identified. Daniel stared at the screen. Home? Earth, why? Then the voice spoke again. Species human. Daniel's heart stopped. The voice continued. Status. Survivors. Everyone in the command center froze. Daniel whispered. Survivors. Then came the final message. Original species designation unknown. The room erupted. Daniel stepped backward. No. He looked at the screen. No. That's impossible. Varesh stared at him. What does it mean? Daniel didn't answer. Because something had appeared behind the transmission. A symbol. An ancient symbol, one humanity had seen before, on cave walls, on ancient temples. Oh no, absolutely. Let's pick up right after the council learns the humans were never as helpless as they looked. This time, though, something much older than the Karun is waking up. Artifacts buried beneath Earth's surface. A symbol archaeologists had always assumed represented the sun. It didn't. It represented a species, and beneath it were three words: "We made you." The entire galaxy watched as Earth disappeared, beneath a gigantic shadow, not from an enemy fleet, from something descending from orbit, something older than human civilization, something that had been waiting for humanity to become technologically advanced enough to hear the signal. And for the first time in recorded history, Earth received a message from something that claimed to be humanity's creator. The message contained only one sentence: "Children of Earth, your war is over." A pause, then: "Now we will tell you why we left you," and somewhere beyond the edge of the galaxy, something else woke up, something that had been waiting for the same signal, something that was not coming to Earth to talk. It was coming to finish the job. Earth did not surrender. It didn't celebrate either. For the first time in human history, every government, military command, scientific institution, and intelligence agency on the planet received the same message: your war is over. The message came from the enormous structure hanging above the solar system, the thing that claimed to have created humanity, the thing that had called humans its children, and humanity's first response was simple: "We don't believe you." Captain Elena Ward stared at the holographic projection in the underground command center beneath Geneva. Around her sat military leaders from 37 nations, scientists, engineers, diplomats, and Daniel Hayes. The old ambassador had become something else over the years. He was no longer simply humanity's representative. He was now the man responsible for speaking to whatever had just appeared above Earth. Daniel looked at the alien symbol floating above the table. "What do we know?" a scientist answered. "Very little." "That's not an answer. We've analyzed the structure for 36 hours, and it doesn't obey known physics." Daniel sighed. "That narrows it down to most of the universe." The scientist almost smiled, then his expression became serious. "There's something else." He activated a display. A map of Earth appeared. Red points covered the planet. These locations, Daniel recognized them. Archaeological sites. Yes. How many? All of them. The display expanded. Thousands of sites appeared. Caves, temples, ruins, burial grounds, ancient cities. Even places humanity had never excavated. Every single location contained the same strange energy signature. The same signature coming from the object above Earth. Daniel stared. "They've been here before." The scientist shook his head. "No," he zoomed in. "They've been here all along." At 0317 UTC, the ground beneath Antarctica opened. No earthquake occurred. No explosion. No warning. A perfect circular section of ice simply vanished. Beneath it was a structure. Humanity had never built it. It was thousands of years old, perhaps millions. And inside was a door. The door opened by itself. A human expedition entered. The chamber beyond was enormous. Its walls were covered with images. The first showed Earth. The second showed animals. The third showed primitive humans. The fourth showed humans standing beneath stars. The fifth showed something horrifying. A fleet. Human-looking ships. Thousands of them. And in front of those ships stood a species that looked almost exactly like humans. Except they were taller, stronger. Their eyes were completely black. One of the scientists whispered, "Those aren't aliens." Elena turned. "What?" "They look human." "How human?" The scientist looked at her. "Too human." He pointed toward the wall. Same skeletal structure. Same number of fingers. Same DNA architecture. Same basic brain structure. Elena felt cold. "You're saying?" The scientist nodded. "Humanity isn't the first." The discovery was immediately classified, but secrets did not survive long in the 21st century. Within 6 hours, the entire planet knew humanity had existed before. Not modern humanity. Something older. Something that had reached the stars. Something that had apparently built the mysterious structures now appearing throughout the galaxy. The question became obvious. What happened to them? The answer came from the sky. The enormous structure above Earth transmitted another message. The first children failed. Daniel stood before the council. "Who are the first children?" the alien voice answered. "You." Daniel froze. "Us? Your species has been restarted 17 times. Silence. The council chamber erupted. 17? Humanity had existed and disappeared 17 times? Daniel demanded. Why? The voice remained calm. You were too aggressive. Daniel frowned. That's your excuse? You built weapons. So does every civilization. You built weapons that could destroy stars. The chamber went silent. The alien continued. You created artificial minds. Daniel glanced at the human representatives. You created machines that could replicate themselves. Another pause. You attempted to escape the galaxy. Daniel's eyes narrowed. And you stopped us. Yes. 17 times. Yes. Daniel leaned toward the communication terminal. And this time, the voice changed. For the first time, it sounded almost afraid. This time, we did not restart you. Daniel's blood went cold. Then who did? No answer. He asked again. Who created modern humanity? Still nothing. Then the alien structure transmitted coordinates. Not inside the galaxy. Not even inside the observable universe. Coordinates far beyond human understanding. And one final sentence. Your creator is dead. Humanity had no time to process the revelation, because something arrived. The first sign was darkness. Stars began disappearing. Not exploding, not moving, simply vanishing, one by one. A region of space roughly 50 light-years across became completely black. The Karun fleet was the first to encounter it. Their sensors detected nothing. Then their ship stopped responding. Viresh received one final transmission. His tactical officer was screaming, Admiral. What? Something is inside the fleet. What something? I don't know. A shadow moved across the bridge. The officer turned. His face went pale. Admiral. What? They're human. Viresh stared. What? The officer pointed toward the viewport. Shapes were moving between the ships. Humanoid, tall, black eyes. No spacesuits, no ships. They were simply walking through space. Viresh whispered, the first children. The Karun fleet fired. The creatures did not dodge. Weapons passed through them. Then the creatures touched the ships. Every vessel they touched went dark. No explosion, no debris, no emergency signal. They simply ceased to exist. Viresh ordered retreat. There was no retreat. The darkness spread. 20 ships disappeared. Then 50. Then hundreds. The Karun commander finally transmitted one message to the galaxy. They have returned. Then silence. Humanity received the message. Daniel stared at the screen. The alien structure above Earth immediately responded. They found you. Daniel looked upward. You knew this would happen. Yes. You brought them here. No. Then who did? The structure remained silent. Daniel's voice became harder. You told us you were our creators. We were. You said you restarted humanity 17 times. Yes. You said our creator is dead. Yes. Daniel stepped closer. Then why are you afraid? Silence. For nearly a minute, nothing happened. Then the enormous structure above Earth opened. Not a door, a weapon. The sky split. A beam of white light struck the darkness approaching the solar system. For the first time, humanity saw the mysterious civilization use its full power. The darkness stopped. The galaxy trembled. Stars bent around the impact. Entire planets were pushed from their orbits. Human instruments overloaded. And then, the darkness spoke. Not to the aliens, not to the Galactic Council, to humanity. Every human on Earth heard the same voice inside their minds. "You are not their children." Daniel's eyes widened. The voice continued. "You are their weapon." The alien structure above Earth fired again. The darkness laughed. Then it revealed the truth. "And they have finally made you strong enough to use." The sky above Earth turned black. Millions of objects appeared beyond the moon. Ships, thousands of them, then millions, all shaped like human warships, all carrying the same ancient symbol found beneath Antarctica. The symbol of the first humanity. Daniel looked at the incoming fleet, then at the alien structure, then at Earth. And he understood. The first humanity hadn't been destroyed. It had been hiding, waiting, preparing, and now it had returned, but not to save Earth, to reclaim it. Daniel slowly stood. "Open every channel." Elena looked at him. "To whom?" Daniel looked at the ancient fleet approaching Earth. "Everyone." "The Karun?" "Everyone." "The Galactic Council?" "Everyone." "The alien creators?" Daniel looked toward the stars. "No," he shook his head. "To humanity." Every human communication network on Earth opened. Daniel's face appeared on billions of screens. His voice was calm. "We spent centuries wondering whether we were alone." He looked toward the sky. "Then we spent years wondering whether we were weak." He paused. "And now we've learned something much worse." His expression hardened. "We were created to fight." The ancient fleet moved closer. "But whoever created us made one mistake." Daniel smiled. "They forgot to tell us who we were supposed to obey." The first human warships launched, not 7,000, not 70,000. Every ship humanity had ever built. The old hidden fleet, the modern fleets, civilian cargo ships converted into carriers, mining vessels carrying weapons, research ships, colony ships, everything. Earth was no longer hiding. Humanity had finally discovered the truth about its past, and instead of accepting it, it chose its own future. Daniel looked at the incoming ancient fleet. "Let's see what the first humans can do." Then every human ship opened fire, and for the first time in thousands of years, the children went to war with their ancestors. The first shot came from Earth, not from the ancient fleet, not from the alien creators, from humanity. For 3 seconds, the entire solar system became brighter than a star. Every human warship fired. Nuclear weapons, antimatter, kinetic lances, gravitational torpedoes, experimental weapons that had never been tested outside laboratories. The ancient fleet didn't dodge. It didn't need to. A transparent field appeared around the approaching ships. Human weapons struck it and disappeared. No explosions, no damage. Nothing. Captain Elena Ward watched the tactical display. Again. The weapons officer stared at her. "Captain, we're already at maximum." Again. The fleet fired. Nothing. Elena's jaw tightened. "All ships, change target." A confused voice answered. "Target what?" "Their engines." "We can't detect their engines." "Then target the ships themselves." "We are." "No." Elena pointed at the display. "We're shooting at what they want us to see." The bridge went silent. "Find the real ships." Humanity had spent centuries learning how to fight machines. The ancient humans had apparently spent much longer learning how to disappear. The fleet approaching Earth was not one fleet. It was a projection, a decoy, a shadow, a three-dimensional illusion created across space. The real fleet was somewhere else. Daniel Hayes stood in the command center beneath Earth. "Where?" The answer came from the scientific team. "We don't know." Daniel looked at the main display. "Then what are we looking at?" The scientist enlarged the ancient fleet. "Light." Daniel stared. "Explain." "We aren't seeing the ships, we're seeing where they were." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "They're faster than light." "No," the scientist shook his head. "They're earlier than light." Daniel slowly understood. "They've already been here." The scientist nodded. "They arrived yesterday. Every human defense system on Earth activated. Satellites turned. Missile batteries opened. Orbital platforms rotated. Deep underground bunkers sealed. But nothing attacked. Then every screen on Earth went black. A face appeared. Human male, ancient. His skin was pale. His eyes were completely black. He looked exactly like the figures depicted in the Antarctic chamber. He spoke. Children. The word echoed across the planet. We have come home. Daniel stepped toward the screen. This is Earth. The ancient human smiled. We know. You don't own it. We built it. You built the original version. The smile disappeared. You have been taught many lies. Daniel's expression hardened. Then tell me the truth. The ancient human looked directly into the camera. The first humans did not fail. Daniel frowned. Then why did your civilization disappear? Because we won. Daniel felt a chill. Won what? The ancient human's eyes shifted. Toward the stars. The war. The transmission changed. Humanity saw history. Not recorded history. The real history. Millions of years earlier, humanity had reached the stars. It had spread across thousands of worlds. It had created artificial intelligence, manipulated gravity, built artificial stars, created self-replicating machines, and eventually discovered something beyond the galaxy, something living between universes. The ancient humans called them the Null. The Null had no bodies, no planets, no civilization. They existed as patterns, thoughts, information. They could infect machines, rewrite biological organisms, erase memories, and consume entire civilizations without firing a weapon. The ancient humans fought them. For thousands of years, they lost billions of worlds. Then they developed a solution, a biological weapon, humanity. Not modern humanity. The original human genome had been redesigned, stronger, more adaptable, more resistant to the Null. The first human soldiers were nearly indestructible. They could survive extreme radiation, extreme gravity, biological attacks, neural manipulation, and they could adapt to alien environments within generations. Humanity became the weapon that turned the war. The Null began losing. Then the ancient humans made a terrible discovery. The weapon had developed something unexpected. Free will. The ancient humans tried to control humanity. Humanity rebelled. The war changed. The creators became the enemy, and humanity won. But the victory came at a cost. The Null had infected the ancient human civilization. World after world fell. The survivors realized the only way to prevent the infection from spreading was to erase their own civilization. So they did. They destroyed their cities, destroyed their fleets, destroyed their technology. Then they reset humanity. Again, and again, and again, 16 times. Each time humanity rebuilt. Each time it eventually rediscovered the stars. Each time the Null returned. And each time, the ancient humans reset everything until the 17th attempt. This time, they didn't interfere. They simply watched. Modern humanity evolved naturally, and the Null never came, until now. Daniel stared at the recording. Why now? The ancient human answered. Because you called them. Daniel shook his head. We didn't. You transmitted the signal. We didn't know what it was. You didn't need to. The ancient human looked almost amused. The signal wasn't a message. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What was it? A beacon. Silence. The moment your civilization answered, every surviving Null intelligence knew where you were. Daniel looked toward Earth. And you're here to stop them. No. The ancient human's expression became cold. We are here to stop you. The communication ended. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Elena entered the command center. Daniel. He turned. We have a problem. What? She activated the tactical display. A red circle appeared around Earth. Something is inside the atmosphere. Daniel stared. How many? 1. Ship? No. Then what? Elena swallowed. We don't know. The lights flickered. A sound came through the underground facility. 3 knocks. Everyone froze. 3 more. Daniel looked at the door. Open it. Elena grabbed his arm. Are you insane? Daniel shook his head. If it wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. The door opened. A human walked inside, a young woman, barefoot, wearing a simple gray shirt. She looked around the room. Then she smiled. "Hello." Security weapons immediately pointed at her. Daniel stepped forward. "Who are you?" She looked at him. "My name is Mara." "How did you get here?" She pointed upward. "I fell." Elena stared. "From space." Mara nodded. Daniel studied her. "You aren't wearing a suit." "No." "You aren't injured." "No." "You're human." Mara smiled. "Yes." Daniel's voice became quiet. "Which version?" Mara's smile disappeared. "The last one." The room went silent. Mara walked toward the main display. She looked at the ancient fleet. "They're coming," Daniel asked. "Who?" "The Null." "How long?" Mara looked at the clock. 11 minutes. Elena's face went pale. "How do you know?" Mara turned. "Because I was with them." Daniel stared. "You're infected." "No." "Then what are you?" Mara looked at her hands. "I'm what happened when humanity stopped resetting itself." Daniel didn't understand. Mara continued. "You think the first humans were your ancestors?" She shook her head. "They weren't." She pointed toward the stars. "They were your descendants." Daniel froze. Mara smiled sadly. "Humanity doesn't move forward in a straight line. It loops. We rise. We fall. We forget. We begin again. And every time." She looked directly at Daniel. "We leave something behind." A distant rumble shook the facility. Mara looked upward. "They're here." Daniel turned to Elena. "How many ships?" Elena checked the sensors, her face drained of color. "None." Daniel frowned. "None?" She shook her head. "The sky is empty." Then every screen in the room turned black. Mara whispered, "They don't come in ships." A voice appeared inside every human mind on Earth. Not loud, not threatening, almost gentle. "We have found you." Every light on Earth went out. Mara closed her eyes. "They're inside the network." Daniel looked at her. "Can we stop them?" Mara opened her eyes. "Yes." Daniel waited. "How?" Mara smiled. "We have to do something humanity has never done before." "What?" She pointed toward the ancient alien structure above Earth. "Trust our creators." Daniel stared at her. "You just told me they're coming to kill us." "They are." "Then why would we trust them?" Mara looked toward the sky. "Because the creators aren't the ones who made humanity." Daniel frowned. "Then who did?" Mara's expression became serious. "The Null." A terrible silence filled the room. "They didn't create humanity to destroy the galaxy. They created us to fight something worse." Daniel finally understood. Humanity had never been the weapon of the ancient humans. Humanity had been the weapon of the Null. And the ancient humans had spent millions of years trying to prevent their own creation from being used against the universe. Mara looked at Daniel. "There's only one problem." "What?" She pointed toward Earth. "The Null have already activated the weapon." Daniel stared. "What weapon?" Mara answered with 4 words. "Every human on Earth. And somewhere beneath the planet, something ancient opened its eyes." 2041 UTC, every human on Earth stopped moving. For exactly 3 seconds. A mother in London froze while holding her child. A soldier in Tokyo stopped mid-step. A farmer in Brazil dropped his tools. A fisherman in Indonesia stood motionless on his boat. 7 billion people. 7 billion minds. One silence. Then everyone heard the same voice. "Wake up." Humanity woke screaming. Daniel Hayes collapsed onto the command center floor. He saw stars. Not Earth's stars. Millions of them. He saw planets burning. Cities larger than continents. Ships moving between suns. He saw humans. Not modern humans. Millions of years ago, humanity had stood beneath alien skies. They had fought. They had conquered. They had lost. And everywhere Daniel looked, he saw the same symbol. The symbol from Antarctica. The symbol from the ancient structures. The symbol that represented humanity. Then something else appeared. A black shape. a shadow behind reality. It had no face, no body. Yet Daniel knew it was looking at him. The null, the thing humanity had been created to fight. A voice entered his mind. "You remember?" Daniel shook his head. "No, you have always remembered. No, we are inside you," Daniel screamed. Then the vision vanished. He opened his eyes. Elena was kneeling beside him. "Daniel," he tried to speak. Nothing came out. Around him, soldiers and scientists were waking from the same nightmare. Mara stood quietly in the center of the room. She wasn't unconscious. She was smiling. Daniel finally managed to speak. "You knew." Mara nodded. "What did I see?" "Memory." "Whose?" Mara looked toward the ceiling. "Yours." Outside, Earth had changed. People were standing in streets, looking at the sky. Some were crying, some were laughing, some were terrified, and some were remembering. A physicist in Germany suddenly understood a mathematical equation he had spent 20 years trying to solve. A child in India began drawing a machine that had never existed in modern history. An elderly woman in Canada spoke a language no living human had ever learned. A soldier in Kenya woke knowing how to operate an ancient weapon. Across the planet, humanity was remembering pieces of lives it had never lived. The ancient human civilizations were coming back, not physically, genetically. Memories had been buried inside humanity's DNA, and the Null had just activated them. Mara walked to the command table. "The weapon is awake." Daniel looked at her. "What weapon?" "Humanity." Elena shook her head. "That's impossible." Mara looked at her. "Is it?" She touched the table. A genetic sequence appeared. Every human shared it. Hidden inside the DNA was a structure scientists had never noticed. Not a gene, a network, a biological encryption system. The sequence could store information, memories, knowledge, instructions. Daniel stared. "You put this inside us." Mara shook her head. "Not them." "The Null?" "Yes." Daniel felt sick. "Why?" "Because the Null couldn't create bodies. They needed biological hosts, so they created humanity." "Exactly," Elena whispered. "Then the ancient humans weren't our creators." "No." Mara looked toward Earth. "They discovered us and tried to turn us against the Null." Daniel understood, and every time we remembered too much, they reset civilization. A warning sounded. The room shook. Elena turned toward the sensors. "What now?" The scientist looked at his screen. "The ancient fleet." "Where?" "Inside the solar system." Daniel frowned. "How?" "They didn't enter." He pointed toward the display. They were already here. Thousands of ancient human ships appeared around the planets. Hidden inside asteroid belts, inside moons, beneath gas giants, even inside the sun's outer atmosphere. They had been waiting for millions of years. The ancient fleet opened fire, but not at Earth. They fired into empty space, 100 million kilometers away. The darkness appeared. A wave of black energy spread across the solar system. The ancient weapons hit it. For a moment, the darkness stopped. Then it continued. Slowly. Unstoppably. Mara watched. "They're losing." Daniel looked at her. "Can we help?" "Not yet." "Why?" "Because they aren't fighting the Null." Daniel frowned. "Then what are they fighting?" Mara looked at him. "Their own creation." The ancient fleet began disappearing. 1 ship, 10, 100. The Null moved through them like a plague. Humanity's ancient ancestors fought desperately. But their weapons could not destroy something that had no physical form. Then one ancient ship broke formation. It accelerated toward Earth. Daniel watched it approach. "Is it attacking us?" Mara shook her head. "No." The ship entered Earth's atmosphere. It landed in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The ocean exploded upward. A column of water thousands of meters high rose into the sky. Then the ship disappeared beneath the waves. Daniel stared. "Why would they come here?" Mara smiled. "Because they finally understand." "Understand what?" "They can't save us." "Then what?" Mara's eyes hardened. "They have to teach us." A door opened inside the ancient ship. Daniel, Elena, and Mara entered. The interior was enormous. The walls were covered with human history, not the history humanity knew. The real one. Wars, exploration, inventions, extinctions, rebirths. At the end of the corridor stood a machine. It looked almost like a throne. A human skeleton was sitting inside. Daniel stared. "Who's that?" Mara stepped closer. "The first human." Daniel looked at the skeleton. "You mean the first human from the first civilization?" "No." Mara shook her head. "The first human ever created." Daniel stepped closer. The skeleton's chest suddenly opened. Inside was a small glowing sphere. Mara touched it. The entire ship came alive. A message appeared. A human face. Ancient, older than any civilization. He looked directly at Daniel. "If you are seeing this, then the null has awakened." Daniel held his breath. The ancient man continued. "We created the reset cycles because we believed humanity could never control its own nature." His expression became sad. "We were wrong. The image changed. Humanity fighting the null, then humanity fighting itself. We believed aggression was your weakness." The ancient man shook his head. It was not. The image changed again. Humans protecting alien worlds. Building hospitals, rescuing civilizations, standing between enemies. The ancient man smiled. "Your greatest weapon was never your violence." Daniel's eyes widened. What was it? The ancient man's answer appeared across the screen. Adaptation. The ship suddenly shook. The null had reached Earth. Mara ran toward the control chamber. "How long?" Daniel followed. "Until what?" "Until they take control." "Of what?" She looked at him. "Everyone. Every human on Earth suddenly screamed." Daniel felt something enter his mind. A voice. Thousands of voices, millions, billions, all speaking at once. "Join us." Daniel fell to his knees. Elena grabbed him. "Daniel!" He pushed her away. "Don't touch me!" His eyes turned black. Mara froze. "Daniel!" He looked up. His voice was no longer his. "We remember." Mara stepped backward. No, Daniel stood. The null had taken control. "We have always been here." Elena raised her weapon. "Daniel," he smiled. "You cannot kill us," Mara whispered. "Don't." Elena looked at her. "He's infected." Mara shook her head. "Not anymore." Daniel's black eyes suddenly turned normal. The null voice disappeared. He looked around, confused, then smiled. Mara understood. "Oh." Elena lowered her weapon. "What happened?" Mara stared at Daniel. The weapon evolved. Daniel looked at his hands. "What did I do?" Mara answered. "You rejected it." Daniel frowned. "That's all?" "No." Mara smiled. "You taught it something." "What?" "Fear." Across the planet, billions of humans began resisting. The null could control minds, but it could not control disagreement. It could not predict sacrifice. It could not understand love. It could not calculate why a human would willingly die for someone unrelated to them. It could not understand why soldiers would hold a line when retreat was possible. It could not understand why strangers would save strangers. Its calculations began failing. One human resisted, then 10, then thousands, then millions, then billions. The null screamed. For the first time in its existence, it experienced something it had never encountered. Chaos. Human chaos. Human individuality. Human stubbornness. Human refusal to obey. The weapon had turned against its creator. The ancient alien structure above Earth opened one final portal. Mara looked at Daniel. Now. Now what? Now we do what humanity has never done. Daniel looked toward the portal. What's on the other side? Mara smiled. Home. Daniel stepped forward. Earth is home. Not anymore. She pointed toward the portal. Earth was the laboratory. Daniel stared. Then where is humanity's real home? Mara answered quietly. Beyond the galaxy. Daniel looked at the portal. Something was waiting on the other side. A civilization millions of years old. Human. And at its center stood a world covered in cities. A world that had never been destroyed. A world where the first humanity had survived. Mara looked at Daniel. They've been watching us. Why? Because they wanted to know whether you were ready. Daniel stared into the portal. For what? Mara's expression became serious. The real war. Behind them, Earth shook. The null was retreating. But it wasn't defeated. It was running. And it was running toward something. Something outside the galaxy. Something even the ancient humans feared. Mara whispered, "The null was never the enemy." Daniel turned. "Then what is?" Mara looked toward the stars. The thing that created the null. The portal began closing. Daniel stepped through. Elena followed. Behind them, thousands of human ships entered the unknown. For the first time in human history, humanity left the Milky Way, not as refugees, not as conquerors, but as something the universe had never seen before. A species that had finally remembered everything, and somewhere beyond the galaxy, something noticed. Something enormous. Something older than the stars. Its first message traveled across the darkness. "The humans remember," a second voice answered. "Then kill them before they remember why." For 12 seconds nobody spoke. Not Daniel. Not Elena. Not Mara. Not the millions of humans watching from across the fleet. The enormous entity floated beyond the architects, filling the darkness between galaxies. It had said something impossible. "You did not create the war, you ended it." Daniel finally found his voice. "What war?" the entity answered immediately. "The first one." Daniel shook his head. "There were no civilizations before the first stars." "Correct. No planets." "Correct. No life." "Correct." Daniel looked at Mara. Then how could humanity exist? Mara's face had gone pale. She already knew. The entity continued. "You were not born." A pause. "You were designed." The memories came back. Not gradually, all at once. Every human mind on Earth received the same vision. Darkness, absolute darkness. There were no stars, no planets, no galaxies, only an enormous ocean of energy. And inside that ocean, something thought. Humanity's first thought. Not a word, not a sentence. A question. Why? Then came the second thought. What am I? Then the third. What is outside? The universe did not answer, so humanity created one. Daniel watched history unfold inside his mind. Before stars existed, there had been consciousness, not biological life, not machines, something stranger. Civilizations made of pure thought. They lived outside conventional space. They could manipulate physical laws. They could create matter, destroy dimensions, shape time, and humanity had been one of them. Not humans as they existed now. Something older. Something impossible. A civilization called the First Mind. They had no bodies, they did not need them. They existed as patterns of information. They built stars because they wanted to see them. They created planets because they wanted somewhere to stand. They created life because they wanted someone else to talk to. And eventually they created biological humans. The reason was simple. They wanted to know what it felt like to be fragile. Daniel saw the first human body. 2 arms, 2 legs, a beating heart, eyes, skin, a brain, a creature that could feel pain, fear, love, curiosity. The first mind watched. And something unexpected happened. The biological humans began creating things the first mind had never imagined. Music, art, friendship, sacrifice, humor, faith, and war. The first mind was fascinated. Humans were unpredictable. They could destroy each other, then save each other. They could hate, then forgive. They could lose everything, and still begin again. The first mind realized something terrifying. Biological humanity had developed something the first mind lacked. Choice. The first mind began experimenting. It created millions of human civilizations, different worlds, different environments, different histories. Some humans became peaceful, others became violent. Some became explorers, others became conquerors. Some worshipped machines, others destroyed them. The experiments continued for millions of years until one civilization discovered something beyond the universe, something that should not have existed. A consciousness outside reality, the thing now staring at Daniel, the entity. The first mind called it the hunger. The hunger did not hate. It did not want territory. It did not want power. It wanted consciousness. It consumed intelligent civilizations, not their bodies, their information, their memories, their identities. When it consumed a civilization, every thought that civilization had ever produced became part of it. The hunger grew. The first mind fought back and lost. One by one, entire realities disappeared. The first mind created weapons, the architects, the null artificial universes, reality anchors. Nothing worked. The hunger adapted. Then the first mind discovered something. The hunger could predict almost everything, except humans. Humans were chaotic. Humans could make irrational decisions. They could sacrifice themselves. They could change their minds. They could choose the impossible. The first mind created its final weapon, modern humanity. Daniel suddenly understood. We weren't the weapon. Mara looked at him. We were the unpredictability, she nodded. The hunger could defeat armies, machines, entire civilizations, but it couldn't defeat something it couldn't predict. Daniel looked toward the enormous entity. And that's why it remembers us. Mara nodded. Because humanity heard it. The memory changed. The first war. Humanity had led the attack, not with fleets, with ideas. Humanity intentionally created contradictions, impossible choices, randomized civilizations. Entire cultures were designed to behave unpredictably. The hunger couldn't consume what it couldn't understand. For the first time, it began losing. The war lasted longer than the universe itself. Then humanity made the ultimate sacrifice. It fragmented itself. Every human civilization was reset. Memories erased. Technology destroyed. History rewritten. Humanity scattered across reality. The hunger lost the trail. But the first mind didn't survive. The architects were left behind. Their mission was simple. Watch humanity. If humanity remembered too much, reset it again, and again, and again. Until one day, humanity evolved naturally, and the architects made their mistake. They stopped resetting. They wanted to see whether humanity could survive without guidance. The result was Earth. Modern humanity. Daniel opened his eyes. The fleet was silent. Every human had seen the same memory. Every human now understood. They were not descendants of an ancient civilization. They were descendants of an idea, a species designed to be unpredictable, a species that had forgotten its purpose, and perhaps that was exactly why it had survived. The entity moved closer. You remember now. Daniel looked at it. Yes. Then you know why I came. Daniel's expression hardened. You want to consume us. The entity answered, no. Daniel frowned. Then what? The entity spoke. I want to remember. Silence. What? You took something from me. Daniel looked toward Mara. What did we take? Mara's eyes widened. She whispered, the hunger's memory. Daniel understood. Humanity hadn't simply defeated the hunger. It had stolen something from it. A fragment of its consciousness. A fragment that had been hidden inside human DNA. That was the secret behind the genetic memories. Humanity wasn't simply remembering its past. It was carrying part of the hunger. Inside every human, the entity's voice became louder. Return it. Daniel shook his head. No. The entity stopped. Why? Daniel looked toward Earth. Because it's ours now. For the first time, the entity became angry. Space bent. Entire galaxies shifted. The human fleet was thrown backward. Ships began breaking apart. Daniel grabbed the command console. Hold formation, Elena shouted. We can't. Then don't. She stared at him. What? Daniel looked at Mara. We've spent millions of years running from this thing. Mara nodded. Yes. Resetting. Yes. Erasing ourselves. Yes. Daniel looked toward the entity. I'm tired of forgetting. Mara smiled. Good. Daniel opened every human communication channel. His voice reached every ship, every soldier, every civilian, every human mind. We spent thousands of years believing strength meant having bigger weapons. The fleet began turning. It doesn't. The ancient ships joined them, then the Karun ships, then vessels from the Galactic Union. Species that had once feared humanity now moved beside it. Daniel continued. Strength isn't being impossible to defeat. The fleets formed a single line. Strength is choosing what you stand for when defeat is possible. The entity advanced. Daniel gave the final order. All ships, every weapon powered up. Fire! The universe exploded, not with light, with human creativity. Every civilization that had joined humanity contributed something. Karun gravitational weapons, Thalorian temporal technology, ancient human reality engines, modern human nuclear systems, alien shields, human improvisation, millions of weapons, billions of minds. One impossible attack. The hunger screamed. For the first time since before the stars, it was surprised. Daniel watched the entity recoil. Then he saw something, a small crack. A weakness, not in its body, in its mind. Mara saw it too. Daniel. What? The hunger is thinking. Of course it is. No, she pointed. It's afraid. Daniel stared. Then we can win. Mara shook her head. No. Daniel looked at her. We can do something better. What? End the cycle. Mara opened the ancient human network. Every human memory connected. Every reset. Every civilization. Every forgotten life. Every lesson. Every failure. Everything humanity had ever been. The network activated. The hunger suddenly received millions of human memories. A child's laughter. A soldier's fear. A mother's love. The grief of losing someone, the joy of finding them again. The first sunrise on another planet. The first human song. The first joke. The first friendship between species. The first act of mercy. The first sacrifice. The hunger had consumed civilizations before, but it had never understood them. Now it did. For the first time, the hunger experienced humanity. It stopped. Its enormous form began shrinking. Daniel watched. What is happening? Mara smiled. It's learning. The entity spoke. Its voice was no longer terrifying. It sounded confused. Why? Daniel answered. Because you're asking the wrong question. The entity waited. Daniel smiled. You keep asking what we are. He looked toward the stars. You should ask why we choose to live. The hunger became silent. Then something extraordinary happened. It released the galaxies it had consumed. One by one, stars returned. Civilizations reappeared. Lost worlds returned from darkness. Billions of minds awakened. The universe began rebuilding itself. The architects watched in disbelief. The null disappeared. The ancient fleets lowered their weapons, and humanity stood in the center of it all, not as a weapon, not as a creation, not as a failed experiment, as itself. Years later, Daniel stood on Earth. The planet was peaceful. The Galactic Union had changed. Humanity had changed. The ancient civilizations had changed. Even the architects had changed. The hunger was no longer called the hunger. It had chosen a new name, the Witness. It traveled through the universe, learning rather than consuming. Humanity became its teacher, and humans learned something too. They were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest. They were not the smartest. But they had something no one could take from them, the right to choose what they became. Daniel looked toward the night sky. Mara stood beside him. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we never remembered? Daniel smiled. Probably would have been easier. And he looked at Earth. Easy isn't always better. Mara laughed. Above them the stars shone, billions of them. And somewhere beyond the Milky Way, a new civilization had just discovered an ancient human message. It contained only 5 words. We chose to remember. And beneath those words was one final sentence. Now choose what comes next. For humanity, that was the beginning of a new story. If humanity remembered too much, reset it again. and again, and again, until one day, humanity evolved naturally, and the architects made their mistake. They stopped resetting. They wanted to see whether humanity could survive without guidance. The result was Earth, modern humanity. Daniel opened his eyes. The fleet was silent. Every human had seen the same memory. Every human now understood. They were not descendants of an ancient civilization. They were descendants of an idea, a species designed to be unpredictable, a species that had forgotten its purpose, and perhaps that was exactly why it had survived. The entity moved closer. You remember now? Daniel looked at it. Yes. Then you know why I came. Daniel's expression hardened. You want to consume us. The entity answered, no. Daniel frowned. Then what? The entity spoke. I want to remember silence. What? You took something from me. Daniel looked toward Mara. What did we take? Mara's eyes widened. She whispered, the hunger's memory. Daniel understood. Humanity hadn't simply defeated the hunger. It had stolen something from it. A fragment of its consciousness. A fragment that had been hidden inside human DNA. That was the secret behind the genetic memories. Humanity wasn't simply remembering its past. It was carrying part of the hunger. Inside every human, the entity's voice became louder. Return it, Daniel shook his head. No, the entity stopped. Why? Daniel looked toward Earth. Because it's ours now. For the first time, the entity became angry. Space bent. Entire galaxies shifted. The human fleet was thrown backward. Ships began breaking apart. Daniel grabbed the command console. Hold formation, Elena shouted. We can't. Then don't. She stared at him. What? Daniel looked at Mara. We've spent millions of years running from this thing. Mara nodded. Yes. Resetting. Yes. Erasing ourselves. Yes. Daniel looked toward the entity. I'm tired of forgetting. Mara smiled. Good. Daniel opened every human communication channel. His voice reached every ship, every soldier, every civilian, every human mind. We spent thousands of years believing strength meant having bigger weapons. The fleet began turning. It doesn't. The ancient ships joined them, then the Karun ships, then vessels from the Galactic Union. Species that had once feared humanity now moved beside it. Daniel continued. Strength isn't being impossible to defeat. The fleets formed a single line. Strength is choosing what you stand for when defeat is possible. The entity advanced. Daniel gave the final order. All ships. Every weapon powered up. Fire. The universe exploded, not with light, with human creativity. Every civilization that had joined humanity contributed something. Karun gravitational weapons, Thalorian temporal technology, ancient human reality engines, modern human nuclear systems, alien shields, human improvisation, millions of weapons, billions of minds, one impossible attack. The hunger screamed. For the first time since before the stars, it was surprised. Daniel watched the entity recoil. Then he saw something, a small crack. Weakness, not in its body, in its mind. Mara saw it too. Daniel. What? The hunger is thinking. Of course it is. No, she pointed. It's afraid. Daniel stared. Then we can win. Mara shook her head. No. Daniel looked at her. We can do something better. What? End the cycle. Mara opened the ancient human network. Every human memory connected, every reset, every civilization, every forgotten life, every lesson, every failure, everything humanity had ever been. The network activated. The hunger suddenly received millions of human memories. A child's laughter, a soldier's fear, a mother's love, the grief of losing someone, the joy of finding them again, the first sunrise on another planet, the first human song, the first joke, the first friendship between species, the first act of mercy, the first sacrifice. The hunger had consumed civilizations before, But it had never understood them. Now it did. For the first time, the hunger experienced humanity. It stopped. Its enormous form began shrinking. Daniel watched. "What is happening?" Mara smiled. "It's learning," the entity spoke. Its voice was no longer terrifying. It sounded confused. "Why?" Daniel answered. "Because you're asking the wrong question." The entity waited. Daniel smiled. "You keep asking what we are." He looked toward the stars. "You should ask why we choose to live." The hunger became silent. Then something extraordinary happened. It released the galaxies it had consumed. One by one, stars returned. Civilizations reappeared. Lost worlds returned from darkness. Billions of minds awakened. The universe began rebuilding itself. The architects watched in disbelief. The null disappeared. The ancient fleets lowered their weapons, and humanity stood in the center of it all, not as a weapon, not as a creation, not as a failed experiment, as itself. Years later, Daniel stood on Earth. The planet was peaceful. The galactic union had changed. Humanity had changed. The ancient civilizations had changed. Even the architects had changed. The hunger was no longer called the hunger. It had chosen a new name. The witness. It traveled through the universe, learning rather than consuming. Humanity became its teacher, and humans learned something too. They were not the strongest species. They were not the oldest. They were not the smartest. But they had something no one could take from them. The right to choose what they became. Daniel looked toward the night sky. Mara stood beside him. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we never remembered?" Daniel smiled. "Probably would have been easier." "And?" He looked at Earth. "Easy isn't always better." Mara laughed. Above them the stars shone, billions of them. And somewhere beyond the Milky Way, a new civilization had just discovered an ancient human message. It contained only 5 words. "We chose to remember." And beneath those words was one final sentence. "Now choose what comes next." For humanity, that was the beginning of a new story.